Today's topic is building a high performance sales team in 2026. I have with me as our guest speaker Rebecca Costanzo, and she is Director of Mortgage Originations at United Community Bank. Rebecca has had a long career within sales leadership at Truist and SunTrust. Hi, Rebecca.
Good morning, Pat. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm excited to talk about this topic because it's not talked about, I don't think, enough. I think we're always talking about AI. It seems like that's the topic of the day. But let's talk about how you got into our world of mortgage lending, and let's talk about some of your thoughts you have on what things people need to be working on now.
Yeah, of course. Well, I grew up as a kindergartner and always wanted to get into the mortgage business. And I said,
Really?
man, I can't. No, I'm kidding. I don't think anyone has ever said that. Um,
No, they haven't.
I think, like many of us, it really was this odd journey. I was a history major. Who would have ever thought, my goal was law school. And I said,
Yeah.
whatever I do in the world, it is not going to be have anything to do with math. And I got an introduction to the mortgage industry,
Hmm.
and boy, what a difference we make. And I really just fell in love with the opportunity to change people's lives. And I kind of now call it the Hotel California. You can enter but you can never leave. So I
It's a good point.
absolutely love what I do, and do feel like we have this amazing opportunity. And so once you get here and you realize there aren't a lot of other things that we can touch as many people as we touch. And so that was kind of my journey in a nutshell.
So, talk about, before we get on to the main topic today, talk about this issue about what is it that people need to be concentrating on now that they're not from what you see?
So I'm going to go at that question a little differently. I will tell you what I think they need to stop concentrating on.
Okay.
And I think there are a lot of doomsday messages out there about real estate and housing and interest rates, and no one can
Yeah.
move. And we know that's not true. And
Hmm.
I believe we've created this world that we really are going up against negatives in every situation, even internally, right? So we have to really step away from the negativity and understand that
Hmm.
home ownership is an important part of the journey today, just like it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and just like it will be in the future. So I would really encourage people to step away from the doomsday messaging and really look and focus on what can we do, because real estate sales are happening. And if you're
Yes.
worried about what's going to happen, it's just going to pass you by.
Well, that's a great message. I'm glad, Rebecca, that you brought that. That is true. If you were to look at some of the leaders in our industry, it is somewhat of a negative message that you definitely see being conveyed. So, well, that's a perfect jump off point to talk about developing and building a high performance sales team. Now, you've done this throughout your career. You've done it in certainly large banks and regional banks. And so, talk about what from your viewpoint, what separates the top performing teams from those that are not?
So I'm going to come at this from a little bit different perspective,
Hmm.
kind of like I answered your earlier question. I am a really big believer in the power of emotional intelligence, and
Hmm.
how we lead our teams really needs to come from a place of understanding what drives our teams. And each of them is motivated by something
Right.
differently. The old way was we measured everything, and all of our performance was measured in KPIs and leaderboards, and
Hmm.
we did the stack ranking. I don't think that's enough anymore. I think what
Hmm.
we've discovered is the market's a little tougher. Loan officers are a little more stressed. The competition obviously is fierce
Yeah.
because it's a really interesting time. The ones that are winning aren't just the ones that are working harder. They're the ones
Right.
that are operating a little differently, they're operating a little more efficiently, and they're also building relationships in the markets, not only
Hmm.
with realtors, but with their clients, with their neighbors, with their churches. The
Hmm.
opportunities to build relationships and let people recognize that we care. That makes a
Hmm.
big difference. I want to work
Yes.
and do business with someone who genuinely cares. And I do think that Emotional intelligence allows not just the loan officers to set themselves
Hmm.
apart, but your leaders really have to understand what is it that your loan officers are looking to do. How we know and relate to our teammates honestly matters almost as much as the KPIs and the dashboards that
Right.
we're responsible for, right? So my goal as a leader is to actually align what my company needs for me to do and needs for us to perform to with what the loan officer cares about. The loan officer cares about winning. They want to compete. They want to
Hmm.
make money.
Hmm.
They want to reduce friction and reduce stress for the clients. So if I can align those company values and expectations with that of the loan officer, I'm really removing hurdles and allowing them to be their best.
So you see, many companies, and I'm interested in your view, many companies have tried to maybe recruit their way out of this versus developing their staffing. And so, as you know, as a long-term person in sales management, is that the development side is never done very consistently. It's haphazard, it's product focused, and so forth. So, when you're talking about human intelligence, where do you kind of fit on those two topics? Can you recruit your way out of it? And if you can, what does that look like? And then if it's a development component, what should that look?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, recruiting is always important. There's
Sure.
zero
Mhm.
opportunity that we can, instead of always be closing as a sales leader and in mortgage, you need to always be recruiting. So
Right.
that is absolutely crucial, especially as we, look at the age of the industry. We know we've
Sure.
got some natural attrition coming, so we have to always be recruiting. But at the same time, boy, what a great feeling it is to take someone that's never been in the business and bring them in and show
Hmm.
them that passion. Or what I love is when you take a $10 million producer and you pour into them and you find out what's driving them and ask those questions, hey, Pat, do you understand what's
Hmm.
triggering you? What is it when you're on a sales call that makes you kind of step back? Or what is it when you're on a sales call that gets you really excited? And so you get
Hmm.
to really dive deep into those, say, 8 to $10 million producers, and you look down the road and you're like, oh my goodness, I now have a 20 to $30 million producer because we've been really pouring in.
Hmm.
And that's one of the things that makes me excited to really
Hmm.
see that development.
So when you talk about the human intelligence, how does a manager figure out what it is that the loan officer cares about? I mean, you just can't say, "Hey, what do you care about?"
No, that's right. You have to get
Yeah.
to know them. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the things that I have recognized, I've spent a lot of time studying emotional intelligence. I have spoken in several different industries to leadership on emotional
Hmm.
intelligence. And it takes some time for people to recognize and understand this is not a soft skill. We think
Yeah.
it is. This is a
Yes.
difference maker, right? It is a
Right.
revenue driver. It's also a retention boost. It's also, boy,
Right.
don't I love going to work because I feel appreciated. So when you think about how do you lead from that perspective, it's about understanding not only how you show up. So how am I showing up? How's my body language? How am I speaking? It's also
Hmm.
about recognizing and understanding and allowing our teams to understand their own awareness, right? So,
Hmm.
how are they showing up? Do they understand their own triggers? Do they know when they're operating from a place of like emotional chaos? Because our
Hmm.
business is chaotic. We
Right.
have realtors that are very upset at any given moment. We have clients who need their home, or maybe they just got an inspection and it's terrible.
Hmm.
We are in an incredibly emotional business, and our
Yes.
loan officers have to understand how to manage those emotions so they can manage that business. And in a lot of cases, we may not know that if we're not sitting in with them at every moment, which no one is by nature of
Hmm.
what we do. There are a lot of people that do what we do so they can be out alone. But if you're not asking the right questions, like, hey, what's going to make your week a success? Our coaching conversations today can't be How many apps did you take? How many realtors
Yeah.
did you call? We really need to be talking about what was the value of those realtor calls? What did you learn from them? How did
Mm-hmm.
you show up? And how do you communicate under pressure? Because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've been in this business a long time. What we do is incredibly, it's a pressure cooker.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
also spend a lot of time not just asking loan officers about themselves and how do they want to be. Do you want
Mm-hmm.
to be on a leaderboard, or do you really want, kind of someone in the background just telling you did a great job? And how do you
Mm-hmm.
want to show up? What does 5 years look like for you? But you also spend some time with those that work with them. So think our operations staff, our
Mm-hmm.
fulfillment teammates. How's your relationship with them? And I'll get that from both sides, because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes a coaching, I try really hard to make coaching a positive experience, but sometimes you do have to have critical conversations, and when those need to happen, they need to happen quickly. And
Mm-hmm.
draw the parallel between maybe you're not showing up the way you think you're showing up, and let
Mm-hmm.
me show you how we can make that better.
So talk about this issue. When you go into a sales team, not all leaders, they do feel that it's a soft skill and not something that, especially if they were top performers themselves, if they were top salespeople themselves, they will often want to stay away from that exact issue. It's too feely and they don't want to get involved with it. And so how does that get installed and really does come from the sales leadership's role?
That's a great question. So I believe almost every leader in this industry can tell you their numbers.
Oh
Numbers are
yeah,
important. They
correct.
know their units, they know the volume, they know their conversion rates, they know their
Hmm.
quality file numbers, they know all of that. They probably know their technology adoption rates. But while that data is incredibly important and it is what
Hmm.
we are responsible for, our loan officers do not care about. They
Hmm.
care about how am I removing hurdles? How am I allowing them to go be successful? What am I doing to add to their bottom line? And so
Hmm.
when I'm speaking with leaders, of course, the data is important. I need the metrics. I want to know that they understand that. But I also want to know what's motivating your team right now. What are the
Hmm.
hurdles that they see? When I call 3 of your teammates next week, what are they going to tell me? Because I'm going to ask them really pointed questions. What's working?
Hmm.
What's not working? Where can I make a difference in your life? And oh, yeah, you know what? Where are you lacking confidence today? And where do
Hmm.
you feel confident today? And I
Hmm.
expect the leaders that I work with to know that about their teams. So I don't really want to make a phone call and somebody, just dumps on me, and I'd like to
Hmm.
come in prepared so I understand how this person is going to react to what I need. So
Hmm.
the goals that I have are very different than the goals that our LOs have. And if you don't understand what those goals are, it's really hard to marry the two so that you're on the
Hmm.
same page. And to
Hmm.
me, it's incredibly important that we're all on the same page. And what I need to report to and what I'm being held accountable to, there is absolutely a correlation, but
Hmm.
I can't speak in terms of KPIs and risk metrics to a group of teammates that are going out to get the business. I need to relate what I need to what they need so that we really get to that long term. And when you think about, our business has very often spent a lot of time
Yeah,
in we have historically promoted top performers, but we
correct.
haven't done a great job teaching them the leadership skills. And
Hmm.
a top performer that, may not actually want to lead. They just think that's
Right.
the next step, right? So you need to help them to understand, hey, in order to lead a team, you actually have to lead them. You need to understand what energizes your team, what motivates them, and honestly, just as important, what derails them. Because
Right.
everyone has a thing, right? So what's your team? What do they look like? So you can actually help them kind of see it before they see it.
So how do you install this? And from the standpoint that you're exactly right, the top producers tend to get promoted, obviously, for production, and there really is not a lot of development on the leadership. I mean, not to plug the book, that's why I put that together because I didn't
Right.
see a lot of it happening and haven't seen it for years. And it is something that most lenders kind of talk about, but really don't commit to. So, how do you change that dynamic? And how does that become something at the end of the day for the sales leader? They are measured on volume. Productivity and all that. This X factor they're not really measured on. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, so to me, that's where I feel like I excel.
Hmm.
I know and I understand that my
Hmm.
organization cares very deeply about our pull through, our production, our
Yeah, yeah.
cost per
Hmm.
loan, all of those things. The loan officers want to win.
Yeah.
They want to make money. They want to keep
Right.
their realtors and builders happy. One mistake that a lot of leaders make, especially if we've not provided that journey to get from a performer to a leader, is kind of trying to just force those company metrics onto a salesperson. It just
Hmm.
doesn't work.
Hmm.
So, as you kind of are bringing the next level of leaders up, you really have to teach them how to translate. So you have to teach them. I'll give you an example. So if I'm focused today on, say, getting better loans into the system from the
Hmm.
salesperson's perspective,
Right.
I nor any leader on my team can't just say, "Hey, I need you to give us better file quality, and if you don't, I'm going to use the stick and I'm going to cut your comp, and
Right.
this is the way it is." So you really have to reframe it and say, all right, Pat, you are an amazing loan officer. And I know that. I've seen you at work. But let's talk a little bit about one of the things I've recognized. And one thing I've seen with you, Pat, is that sometimes you might throw something over the fence before it's fully ready. So if you think about the realtors that you're fielding phone calls from and they're frustrated, the cleaner you can put those files in up front, the cleaner they're going to go through on the
Hmm.
back end. Then you're calling your realtor and saying, guess what? Everything is great. I need one more thing. I've already got the client working on it. And you know what? That realtor trusts you. They probably already did, but you cemented that trust. You
Right.
now get more referrals. More referrals means obviously more income. It also means
Hmm.
less cold calling. And it also means Rebecca's going to call me just a little bit less to say, hey, let's talk about that file quality.
Hmm.
So you have to teach and train our sales leaders to understand human nature is I will give you what I need, what you need me to give you, but I want to know the WIFM, the what's in it for me. So
Hmm.
let's really frame it to allow our loan officers to understand what's in it for me. Why do
Hmm.
I care what you care about and why does this metric matter? Well, let me tell you why it matters. Because if those metrics don't make that emotional connection and they
Hmm.
don't become emotionally important, they're not going to become operationally important.
Good point. And so it does lead to the question that we're really looking now for sales leaders. They all talk about their coaches, but really they don't coach. And it's what you're framing is that they share the metrics but the other side of it, obviously the good managers do it differently, but the others don't. And so we need to have more coachable people that's their expertise more so than, oh yeah, I was a former top producer, just do what I do.
That's right. That's really right. And you mentioned AI at the beginning. Oh
Hmm.
my gosh, if you have an issue around coaching or you feel like, you know what, my coaching conversations are like 10 minutes and I'm off the call because I said, what'd your team do last week? What are you doing next week? And
Yeah,
you move on, not a coaching conversation. Go out to
correct.
AI and say, what questions do I need to ask? What do I need to do to provide support to a loan officer or to a
Hmm.
salesman? I hate to break it down that simply, but it's there.
Hmm.
And it's as simple as asking better questions. Hey,
Hmm.
you know what, Pat? What does winning look like for you this week? Because I'm going to check
Hmm.
in with you on Friday and see if you won this week. And I want to know what
Hmm.
that looks like. Is it
Hmm.
3 new realtor contacts? Is it coffee? Is it maybe you met with 2 recruits? I love
Hmm.
recruiting, by the way, because you have to show up as your best person when you're recruiting.
Oh
And
yeah,
I
yeah.
love that. So, you know what? I really drive my team sometimes. Maybe they don't feel great right now, but go recruit. You're going to feel really good. Yeah. What's something you want to do more of or less of? I'm sorry, I went back to a coaching question. What's something you want to do more of or less of that will make a difference in your business?
Mhm.
You can't just say, how many applications did you take last week? Did you enter them
Mhm.
all in, whatever the CRM is of the moment?
Yeah.
You have to get really intentional with your teams.
So you've mentioned the metrics, and of course, our world has a lot of metrics, no
That's
question
right.
about it. So, are there a couple metrics that you find meaningful that you really do put a special emphasis on versus other metrics? I mean, there's a million metrics that people
That's
can
right.
be graded on. So, what is it that you are, a couple of them that are important to you?
So I always want to be a good partner. And
Mm-hmm.
by that, I mean, I want our operations team to always know that our sales team is doing the best that we can do. So I
Mm-hmm.
spend a lot of time looking on our operational metrics and saying, are we getting it to them in the are our loans going in a way that would make me proud? Is it
Mm-hmm.
something that I would go, yep, I will put my stamp on that. That's great. And my
Mm-hmm.
clients feel good about it. So that's
Mm-hmm.
one, because at the end of the day, there's a client in the middle of every one of these
Right.
transactions, and it's
Mm-hmm.
incredibly emotional. So I believe how we deliver to our operations team ends up being how we deliver to the end. So
Mm-hmm.
I spend a lot of time with the quality metrics. Obviously, production is important. I would be remiss if I didn't say that. Applications make a big difference because,
Mm-hmm.
we know, especially in today's world, we don't see the pull through that we saw in the past. So
Mm-hmm.
really recognizing and understanding our teammates are getting out there, they're doing the work, they're bringing in the applications. And then, if you have someone that maybe is struggling with pull through, spend some time with that person and recognize what's happening. Are you not asking the right questions on the front end? Are there some things I can do to help you be better for your clients?
Mhm,
So I
mhm,
would tell you, I'd like to say that's not the most important, but it kind of is. It's what we're
mhm,
here for. And then honestly, overall satisfaction. If our clients are happy, they're going to
mhm.
tell others. And
Yeah.
that one really, that tells a story. And I'll
Mhm,
tell you, one of the things that I spend a lot of time with when looking at the client satisfaction metrics is breaking it down to see both sales and operations. And I
mhm.
love it, makes me so happy when I see that the sales and operations scores are really close together, because that
Oh,
means,
okay.
boy, everybody is running on the right message, and we're getting it done at every level. That's the
Mhm.
one. I love the 10 out of 10. That's great. Everybody loves that. But boy, I love a 10 out of 10 from a salesperson and a 10 out of 10 from my operations
Right.
partner, because that's where the magic happens.
Mhm. So when you're talking about leadership at the branch level or within the grouping level, so should a manager, they only have so much time in the day. And so usually you see them spending all of that energy and time with the people that are the poor performers or the weak performers versus the people that, as you talked about before, that 8 to 10 million person that could become 20. So how does that get changed, or should that be changed, or what is it that you kind of value when you see that? Should everybody be treated the same with the attention and certainly the effort in figuring out what matters to them, or just come to grips with that the lower performers are lower performers?
So I think that goes back to knowing your team. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, Pat, I'm going to say something that isn't great, but sometimes you might have a person on your team that
Yeah.
maybe needs to go. And
Yeah.
nobody likes that. No
Sure.
one feels that,
Mm-hmm.
but they may feel the same,
Mm-hmm.
because what we do is really hard. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're doing what we do and you're not getting it done, or
Mm-hmm.
you're not performing at a level that deserves this level of
Mm-hmm.
chaos, then we it could be doing you a favor. And
Yeah.
that is never my first go to, because I do believe everyone deserves to be coached and
Mm-hmm.
everyone deserves to be known. But if
Mm-hmm.
if everyone isn't cut out to do what we do,
Yeah,
now
for
that is not
sure.
a fast decision, I don't believe, but I do believe sometimes it's a decision that should be made. And
Hmm.
it's kind of the old method of your A's, your B's, and your C's. I was a
Sure.
loan officer, and I knew who my A referral sources were and my C's. They
Right.
got a little bit different time from me, but they all got something because they
Hmm.
deserved it.
Hmm.
And so when I think about someone who deserves the coaching,
Yeah.
to me, it's someone that wants to improve. If
Correct.
I've got somebody that's not looking to, if I've got a lower performer and they want to improve, they deserve all of the
Hmm.
attention that we can give them. If
Hmm.
you've got someone that doesn't, maybe they don't.
Hmm. Well, I'm with you on that one. That's for sure. So, talk
Yeah.
about for our listeners, if you're taking over a team and you had to make changes to coincide and align with what you're talking about over the next 12 months, what would be the two or three things that you would suggest that you really have to do? And let's assume that, they were not doing this approach at all.
So, gosh, Pat, you're asking a question that might be looking into my future. So,
True.
yeah, yeah, right. But it is part of my roadmap. So, a lot of it really is creating that culture of coaching.
Hmm.
And, I love the word accountability,
Hmm.
but I'm going to tell you, I think some people get accountability wrong. So,
Hmm.
accountability is not a bad thing. Just like emotional intelligence is not a
Hmm.
soft skill, accountability is, in some instances, it can be considered pressure. I think
Correct.
accountability as pressure is wrong. I think
Hmm.
when you have accountability that is a combination of clarity of expectation and clarity of ownership and the
Hmm.
ability to make an impact, I think that's where accountability becomes a great thing.
Hmm.
So if I look forward, if I were to take over a sales team that needed a little different direction, not saying that's happening, but there would be really that culture of coaching and
Hmm.
accountability and recognizing and understanding accountability is about expectations. It's about
Yeah.
driving behaviors. It's about the
Right.
metrics. But if you're looking at metrics as your only way of accountability, then you're looking at it in my opinion, after it's already completed. A
Hmm.
metric is something that's done. You
It's
already
done.
know this
Right.
was my production last month. This was, if you're not managing the behaviors, you're not going to be able to affect the outcome. So
Correct.
metrics are the outcome. If you're
Yeah.
starting there, you're always going to be behind.
Yeah.
So I would tell you the accountability component is critical when you're talking about a method of coaching. In addition to really recognizing and understanding every team is slightly different, and I don't just mean
Sure.
every organization, but every organization may have 10, 15, 20 teams. Each of those teams has its own personality.
Hmm.
So you've got to really recognize and understand that high performance isn't one size fits all. It really
Right.
is about who wants to
Hmm.
improve. How do I personalize something for you to get
Hmm.
the best I can out of you? I
Hmm.
always love, the championship thought process. You think, okay, you won a Super Bowl or World Cup. We'll say World Cup since we're in the
World
middle
Cup.
of it. So you're a
Yeah.
champion. That's not the case. They became a champion when they put the work in and they did that boring every single day practice and
Correct.
repetition. They didn't
Hmm.
wake up one day and become a champion. And
Hmm.
so we shouldn't expect that our teammates just wake up one day and become great at what they do. We should
Sure.
really, yeah, drive the behaviors and the basic blocking and tackling that needs to
Hmm.
happen to be great at what we do.
Yeah.
It's very intentional.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I often use the same type of analogies. It's very similar to the world of sports or anything, really. So, talk about to our listeners a couple takeaways that you would have for them today.
So I would say today, one of the things that I have it on my wall is high performance today is different than it was. High performance
Yes.
today is personal.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about pushing harder. It's about leading smarter.
Right.
And in my opinion, this would be kind of my drop the mic. The best leaders don't just track numbers, right? They understand the people and the
Mm-hmm.
behaviors behind the numbers. And they
Mhm.
recognize that modifying those things will make a difference in the numbers.
Well, they're words to live by for sure. And so I have to have you come back, talk more about this topic because I don't think it's discussed enough within mortgage lending. I think it's been primarily a transactional business who still is transactional in a lot of ways. So at the end of the day, I do think all of these outside forces are causing us to actually revisit it. So I'm thrilled that you were willing to talk about this topic today, Rebecca. So
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
I want to thank Rebecca for sharing. How can they get a hold of you if they'd like to talk more to you about this whole issue? It's a big issue within our business.
Of course. Thank you so much. I am at United Community Bank, Director of Mortgage Originations. My email address is Rebecca underscore Costanzo. I'll spell that for you, Costanzo at ucbi.com. And I think I'm on LinkedIn and about every possible method you could be. So reach out. I'd love to have conversation.
Well, again, I thank you a lot. And I think it was fabulous what you had to share today. Thanks again. And thanks for our listeners. Certainly contact Rebecca to continue the conversation.
Thanks, Pat.
Thanks for joining us today. If you're looking to become a more effective sales leader, check out the Mortgage Manager Mastery and the new companion workbook at mortgagemanagermastery.com. Until next time, keep learning and keep growing.